All right, so I was going to do a video on Attorney General Daniel Cameron a little bit ago, right after the Breonna Taylor thing came out. But quite honestly, guys, I got so sick and tired of the Breonna Taylor narrative that I just never got around to talking about the backlash that this man has received. But fortunately, Meg Thee Stallion, who is a new up-and-coming rapper in the mold of a smart, intelligent, educated Cardi B, essentially, has given me the perfect backdrop to actually talk about this without actually having to talk too much about the Breonna Taylor case. So some of you guys shouldn't be surprised that my position on this is that rappers and entertainers should not speak out on social issues and politics. And the reason why they shouldn't speak out on social issues and politics is simply because they're just not educated enough to do it. But it has become clear that the left always wants to promote these black entertainers, the new one being Meg Thee Stallion, who's the other side of WAP with Cardi B, as the next female rap star that's in line to become political, kind of like Cardi B, except that Meg Thee Stallion is college educated and not a stripper. So they're trying to legitimize their pawns, so to speak. So I'm going to talk about her latest performance on SNL, where she pushed a super woke black victimhood narrative that the liberals want to cram down our throat. And I'm going to give you guys my take on it. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman, and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys. So I actually can't play the SNL clip because of the copyright claim. So I don't even want to deal with that. So what I'm doing is that during Meg Thee Stallion's performance, there was a part where she used audio from Black Lives Matter activist Tamika Mallory, who was speaking on the Daniel Cameron case. So I'm also going to extend the clip so you can see that whole speech that she gave, because I think it's important to have full context on that speech.
Daniel Cameron is no different than the sellout Negroes that sold our people into slavery.
She said it.
And helped white men to capture our people, to abuse them and to traffic them while our women were raped, while our men were raped by savages. That is who you are, Daniel Cameron. You are a coward, you are a sellout, and you were used by the system to harm your own mama, your own black mama. We have no respect for you, no respect for your black skin, because all of our skin folk ain't our kin folk, and you do not belong to black people at all.
Now keep in mind, guys, 2 days ago, before this performance, Meg Thee Stallion actually posted an Instagram post encouraging her hotties to go out and vote. And she's doing this along with the More Than a Vote coalition started by, Mr. LeBron James, where they basically go out and push people to vote in order to fight systemic racism, aka vote Democrat. Now, again, this is just one of the long lists of things I just don't get about the liberals, specifically the black liberals, because what they do is that they try to paint systemic racism as this, big, huge problem, right? That essentially comes from the government. By definition, the government has set up this system that is so-called systemically racist that needs to be abolished, right? Or changed. But yet the only solution they ever have is more government. And the party of big government is the Democrats. That's why I'm confused in regards to what their actual end goal is, because their actions don't match their stated goals. Essentially, what you're asking for is less government. So you should actually be voting conservative if you want less government and you want to take down this so-called systemically racist system. So this is also how I know that Meg Thee Stallion is just another pawn in the game. So let's break down her performance and really show the irony of the things that she's doing. And it's just another microcosm of just how conflicted the Democrat Party and the left is in terms of the messages that they're trying to push on people. I just found so much irony in this performance, and people trying to call this a powerful message when it's really just a message of conflicting beliefs. And it shows me that these people are puppets and they don't really think through what they're doing. It's almost as if there's just a battery put in their back and their brains are programmed, and then they just go and they never think about exactly what they're doing. Now, here comes my favorite part of the so-called message is when they start talking about how Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General for the Breonna Taylor case, starts talking about how he's a sellout Negro in the same way that the sellout Negroes helped the white man enslave black people back in the day. And, you know, one of the biggest problems I think right now in the black community is that people won't let the slave narrative go. But I'm actually glad that this woman said this, because it shifts. At least they're actually trying to understand a little bit of real history when it comes to slavery, right? Because before, the narrative was always that, you know, the European white man came to Africa, snatched up the slaves, and, you know, sent them to the New World. That's kind of how the story usually goes. But they're actually digging a little bit deeper, and they're saying, you know what? You're just like the original Africans that snatched up the slaves and that, you know, actually enabled the slave trade to be as big as it was, because without the original encapturers, which were mainly Africans and Arabs, the white man would not have been able to enslave as many Africans and quote-unquote black people as they did. The Atlantic slave trade would not have never been as big as it was without those people from inland Africa capturing slaves and enslaving people and then turning around and selling them. So I'm glad they brought this point up, because now when you go and you ask for your reparations, you probably should be looking at the African man or the Arab man and ask him for your reparations, right? Because now accordingly you're starting to get some real understanding of this slave history. So stop asking white people for reparations if you know who the original enslavers were, like you claim that you do. Now finally, let's talk about this idea of Daniel Cameron being some type of sellout, Uncle Tom, coon, what they love to call him. It's almost as if these liberals, they want Daniel Cameron to put Breonna Taylor above the law. It's also very clear they don't even have a basic understanding of how this process even works. They don't have an understanding that it was not up to Daniel Cameron to charge any of these officers. That came down to the grand jury. The grand jury looked at the evidence, looked at the case that was made by the prosecutors, and they decided whether or not charges were appropriate. It is not this man's job to circumvent the legal system to try to bring so-called justice just because Breonna Taylor is black. It's not this man's job. But yeah, he's being called a coon and a sellout, the same thing they always say when you don't agree with the liberal narrative. To me, it's just funny because it's just really, really ironic how people like a great businessman like Herman Cain, he's a coon. Ben Carson, a world-class neurosurgeon, if not the best neurosurgeon ever, is Uncle Tom. Jason Whitlock, who by the way is one of the only major black sportscasters to have a show with a mainly all black male cast, is also called a sellout, a coon, or Uncle Tom. But you have these rappers and entertainers who go out here and talk about killing our own people, selling drugs, robbing, stealing from each other, destroying our own communities. But none of those people are ever called a sellout, coon, Uncle Tom, none of that. But by definition, they're making money off of you while also putting out language and ideas that are destructive to our communities. And to me, I don't understand how that is not a sellout. If a black conservative comes and says, hey, you know, we need to do better, we need to take personal responsibility for our own situations, that you are capable of achieving the American dream, and that you shouldn't be robbing, killing, and stealing. You know, you should want to be a doctor, you should want to be a sportscaster, you should want to be an attorney general. You can do better for yourself. Believing in the individual and thinking that you can overcome. For some reason, that's a coon or sellout or Uncle Tom ideology. For whatever reason. It's almost like if you're successful and conservative, then you're automatically a sellout. But if you are successful and you're liberal, doesn't matter if you are selling drugs or talking about killing and rapping and all that. As long as you're liberal, you're never called a sellout. The gangs that are destroying our communities and that are killing each other over money are never called sellouts and Uncle Toms. It's just interesting to me. So let's take a look at Miss Meg Thee Stallion and some of the message that she's put out to these young girls, since she's such a role model for our community, and that she's not a sellout, and that she's in a position where she can call out people that are harmful to our communities, like Attorney General Daniel Cameron. Let's take a look at some of the things that she's saying and the positive aspects that she's bringing to our community. And I quote, these are some of her lyrics. "I'm running through an N-word house like a Tomb Raider. You got a pass around N-word, he a hot potato. I told him, eat it or get out, that's your ultimatum. But stop licking my P-word hard, that is aggravating." Yep, that sounds like somebody that really wants to respect women. That sounds like somebody that respects herself as a woman. That's exactly who that sounds like. Quote, "I'm a hot girl, don't try at home. I wear that ish that be showing my thong. I like to drink and I like to have sex. I F the N-words that's cutting the check." So basically she's telling young women that it's okay to be whores and to sell their bodies for money. This is the type of stuff that she raps about in her lyrics. She has artists that are featured on her songs that regularly talk about stealing, killing, shooting, destroying the black communities. Regularly. And she makes money off of it. She makes money off putting this garbage in the ear of young women all around the world. But yet, Attorney General Daniel Cameron is a sellout when he's doing his job and following the law. He's worked hard. He went to school. He became an Attorney General. He's on his way up. I think he was considered on the Supreme Court list, on Trump's list for Supreme Court. Again, a model for any young black man to want to grow up and be. But yet you have Meg Thee Stallion, who seems to feel like she's in a position to call this man a coon and a sellout, telling young women it's okay to go out here and have sex with men and to take their money and to sell your body, while also always putting out overly sexualized imagery of herself and basically no clothes, and influencing these young women to be like her, to act like her, to do the things that she do. Behaviors that are destructive to them personally. It might not be destructive to her because she makes money off of it, because she raps. She makes music off of it. But for the young girls that don't rap and that's not fortunate enough to be able to make money off of something like that, it's destructive. And it destroys thousands of young women every single year. That same type of mentality. And also, by the way, I'm not sure if you guys know, but Meg Thee Stallion was shot. She was shot in the foot. Guess who she was shot by? She was shot by Tory Lanez, who happens to be a rapper that she was hanging out with, doing quarantine, doing all this other stuff with. She was shot in the foot because she was hanging out with the wrong people. She wasn't committing no crime. She was innocent. Now, who does that sound like, guys? Who does that sound like? Just think about it. The same bad decision making that led to what happened to Breonna Taylor is also the same bad decision making that almost cost her life. But yet, for whatever reason, she can't put the two together. But you can call Attorney General Cameron a sellout because that doesn't require any thought. That doesn't require a brain. So I know that a lot of black people that might see this video gonna be upset with it. They're gonna be upset with the message. But just understand, when these people out here protesting the street, you know, doing all this, doing all that, causing all this fuss, and you ask yourself, why are we in last place? This is it. This is why we in last place. Because we have people like Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, athletes that know nothing about anything at all, going out here trying to speak for us and talk on these issues that they know nothing about. They know nothing about them. And because of that, we can't go anywhere because our real leaders are shunned because they happen to be conservatives. We don't look up to a world-class neurosurgeon because he agrees with President Trump. We don't look up to a world-class businessman because he agrees with President Trump. We don't look up to an attorney general who is in consideration for being on the Supreme Court because he didn't make a decision that we agreed with. We actively try to bring those people down while we elevate people who are actively trying to destroy our communities on a real level, mentally. And then you wonder why things are not changing. You wonder why we're in a position that we're in right now. It's 100% cultural. And there's this movement to embrace the culture. Oh, you need to be down for the culture. That culture is destructive. That culture is leading us nowhere. There is no culture. This is not a culture. This right here, this stuff that Meg Thee Stallion is talking about is not a culture. No other immigrant group in this country would be able to succeed with this type of mentality where they embrace people that bring their people down, and then they bring down the people that actually bring them up. No other race does that except us. But everybody else gets the blame for why we in the situation that we in. You can't blame nobody else. You can't blame nobody else. We gotta blame ourselves because this is who we choose to have lead us. When they say all skin folk ain't kinfolk, that is one of the most racist terms that I can think of. And the reason why is because it implies that if you don't think a certain way, or if you don't align your views in a certain way, then you are not black, which is exactly what Joe Biden said. And that plays right into the hands of the Democrat Party when Joe Biden told you that you are not as politically diverse as the Hispanic community. And essentially what he's telling you is that they know that black people are nothing but a monolith, and they all think the same. And so all these so-called black leaders, these so-called civil rights activists, go on TV, they make these nice grand speeches where they espouse beliefs and rhetoric that contributes to their own suffering and destruction of our own community, because we have too many people that don't think differently. You're all about diversity of color, but you're not about diversity of ideas. And again, this is why we're in last place. This is why we're not going anywhere. Why does it matter if there's a bunch of different faces that look different if all the same ideas are presented? The whole point of diversity is supposed to be to get different viewpoints and perspectives and ideas in the room. But we can't even be diverse in thought among our own community. Because if you don't want to get on your knees and beg other people to treat you better than you treat yourself, somehow you're a sellout. Somehow you're a coon. Somehow you're Uncle Tom. And that's the game. You sitting here talking about they took our ancestors off of boats and all this and that, and you want to complain about slavery, but you won't go back. You won't go back to Africa. If you really feel that way, that you got taken here from Africa and changed and you were forced to be here, literally nothing is stopping you right now from getting on a boat, getting on a plane, and going back. That's all you got to do. There's plenty of opportunity in Africa. Akon said it. He said more black people should go back to Africa. If you really hate America so much, you don't like it, go back to Africa. Because otherwise you're just talking. You talk a big game, but you still want to live here in America, where apparently you're forced to be. But hey, these are our civil rights activists, guys. This is the people that speak for us. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.